Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the budget meeting to order. And today we have three different departments presenting a load of information. So we are going to get started with the Office of Integrated Development, and our Director of Planning, Kyle Julian, is here. And Mike Wheeler or Steve there.
So actually, we're going to take things. We'll do planning first,
Okay.
Since Kyle's already up, and then we'll do integrated development after them.
Yes. And if you could just keep us on top of the page numbers that we're flipping to.
Yes.
Great, Mike.
And
Thank you.
planning begins on page 79 with their goals, and the numbers begin on page 83 of the document. And I'll hand it off to Mr. Julian.
Okay.
What pages again?
79.
79, thank you.
Good afternoon, President Somerville, Chair Lombardo, members of council, and thank you for the opportunity to discuss the work of the Department of Planning and Urban Development today. The Planning Department comprises three divisions: the Akron Metropolitan Area Traffic Study, or AMATS, the Long Range Planning Division, and the Zoning Division. AMATS is the metropolitan planning organization for Summit County, Portage County, and a small piece of Wayne County, and it's housed here at the City of Akron. Curtis Baker is the director there, and today we have with us Matt Stewart, who's the Transportation Planning Administrator at AMATS. AMATS ensures that the Akron area has a continuing, cooperative, and comprehensive transportation planning process, which is necessary in order to receive federal funds for transportation infrastructure projects in the region. AMATS distributes over $10 million for transportation infrastructure projects in its service area every year. The Long Range Planning Division, headed by Helen Tomick, is responsible for neighborhood and area planning processes, designing, budgeting, administering, and monitoring programs funded through the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and managing the capital investment program. The Zoning Division, led by Mike Antonucci, administers the city's zoning code and the subdivision of land within the city, and it also serves as the offices of the Planning Commission, the Board of Zoning Appeals, and the Urban Design and Historic Preservation Commission. This year, AMATS will continue to execute key planning initiatives and programs that enable the region to receive funding for transportation infrastructure improvements. AMATS will finalize the new 2026 to 2029 Transportation Improvement Program and its long-range transportation plan for the region. It will administer various federal and state programs providing funding for transportation projects in Greater Akron, and AMATS provides critical data and reports on traffic in the region, including reports on traffic volume, crash reports, and pavement condition analyses, as well as other studies. Last year, the Planning Department applied for and received funding through AMATS to create a pedestrian safety master plan in the Summit Lake neighborhood, and that plan is currently being finalized as one sort of very concrete example of how they help the city of Akron. This year, the long-range planning and zoning divisions are working toward a number of strategic initiatives, and these include the completion of the Interbelt Master Plan in collaboration with other city departments and the consultant team led by Sasaki and Associates. And I would point out that we have the second public meeting related to that planning process coming up on the 18th, Tuesday evening. So it'd be wonderful if folks could be there for that. We're excited about that process, and we're working towards engaging with the community to establish a shared vision for the land, the repurposing of the land where the freeway sits now, and then the eventual implementation that advances that vision. We're working hard to promote and simplify and ease the development of infill housing in our neighborhoods, particularly our core neighborhoods, where we've seen a lot of disinvestment over the past decades. So we're collaborating with Development Services and the Service Department to improve and streamline land sales and to make it easier for builders to put a house back on a vacant lot. And we'll also be collaborating with the Land Bank, the Summit County Land Bank, to provide small builders and nonprofit organizations access to high-quality designs for infill homes. We're also looking at updating how we handle land use in the city, how we administer land use, including updating regulations. So we're currently seeking funding that will enable us to collaborate with residents, with council, stakeholders, to modernize the city's development standards and the zoning code. And that will involve revising the Land Use and Development Guide Plan, which was last updated in 1987, and extending the form-based code to more neighborhoods in the city as well. We will continue to make improvements to the capital budget planning process, utilizing more technology to increase transparency and more efficiently coordinate fiscally responsible capital planning across departments. This year, we are beginning a new 5-year cycle with our funding from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and so we will be creating a new consolidated plan and a 2025 annual action plan. This is a process that identifies crucial needs in the community and then defines how the city will deploy HUD dollars in order to address those needs. In areas like affordable housing, economic development. And so we'll engage with residents, we'll engage with service providers, we'll engage with stakeholders, and then and determine where the needs are, and then how, and then come back and define programs that will allow us to use those HUD dollars to effectively address those needs. And part of what we're looking at doing this year is as we mentioned during the capital budget process, is establishing a down payment assistance program for low and moderate income first-time home buyers in the city. And we're also, of course, always looking to assist with the development of affordable housing for low-income residents using home and home ARPA funds as well. We work closely with the Summit County Continuum of Care to address homelessness and support those who are experiencing homelessness or at risk for that. And so we work with those partners to serve those individuals, to navigate federal housing guidelines and policies, to facilitate the development of permanent supportive housing as well. And we'll continue that work, and that will be an area of focus as well. The work over the past year since I've been in this role, taken a particular interest and been able to work with my staff and across departments on restoring core neighborhoods, our older neighborhoods, again, where we've seen so much disinvestment, and thinking through and eliminating some of the barriers to investment in those areas. I see that as a critical piece of the work that the planning department does, an area where we can achieve tremendous improvements in terms of the fiscal situation of the city, in terms of our ability to serve our residents and our ability to achieve equity in the city. And so I'm paying close attention to how things unfold in those core neighborhoods, Summit Lake, North Hill, West Hill, et cetera, and really want to think about what are the barriers to investment in those areas, and how can we improve those situations. And so that's a core function of mine, and I think it's something that's reflected across the priorities that we've established this year. Finally, I'll just say that I'm very proud of the work that the staff in the planning department performs every day, and they're fun people, they're hardworking people, they're intelligent people. It's a pleasure to be around them, and I'm impressed with and inspired by the ways that they're working to advance Akron. And so with that, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Julian. Do we have any questions from our committee members or other council members? Mr. Hanna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see that you have on the Interbelt Planning, you have continued the Interbelt Master Planning process with a focus on community engagement. First question is community engagement. How do you propose to connect with the community that was displaced by the Interbelt? And I'm quite sure you also know that most of the people that were there at that time, they're probably expired now, but their children or grandchildren might be in the area. And I've attended several of those meetings, and there weren't too many people that look like me. So how do you propose to reach out to that area, especially around the Worcester Avenue area, to bring those people that look like me into the conversation? That's my first question.
Okay, that's a great question, and I appreciate that very much. So the planning team that we've hired, Sasaki and Associates, has among, it's a broad team with sub-consultants, other firms that are part of the team. And they are, they've hired 2 individuals who are Akron people, and they, Black Akronites who are familiar with West Akron and have roots here, and they are establishing a series of roundtable discussions in which they will talk to various groups of stakeholders, including current residents of the area adjacent to there and people who have direct experience of the processes of displacement that accompany that. And so there's, going to be an intentional effort to connect as closely, as well as we can, to folks who understood and experienced that displacement. We also have an advisory group, the Interbelt Advisory Group, that has, I believe, it's about 8 to 10 people, I believe, and there are a couple of people who were residents of, were actually experienced the displacement due to the Interbelt directly as well. And so that conversation, they've been involved in that conversation for 3 years, I would say. And then, of course, we're building on the work that was performed by Studio O and Liz Ogbu that resulted in that the Phase 1 report that came out in 2023, and there was extensive engagement to produce that report and document the traumas of that the displacement caused, both because of the freeway and because of the urban renewal programs that were executed in that area, in those areas.
Okay, thank you. One more question, okay.
One more. Also, tiny homes or houses. Have you considered the planning department with building tiny houses in Akron, especially to help the homeless people that's in Akron?
Yeah, we have done that, or looked at that rather. We haven't done it. We've looked at that. We are in conversations with an organization. Family and Community Services, and they have a couple projects that they're working on in the region with some innovative approaches that we are interested in because they both have a track record as a developer of affordable housing, but also as in terms of serving, helping people navigate out of homelessness successfully. We're very interested in this, but I wanted to see one of their projects come out of the ground and make sure that it was that their kind of innovations in the housing space were going to be able to function the way that they should. And so we had a conversation with them last year, and as that project nears completion, we're going to go take a look and see if it's something that we can execute here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Amobian?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Julian, for your work and for the work that your staff is doing. Could you give us, how many staff do you have in your department? Is it 29? It's more than that, isn't it?
So some of those folks are at AMATS across the street, and that's 11 folks.
Okay.
And then the balance is on the 4th floor with us. And that would be, so it's 18, thank you.
Is it 29 minus 11? Is that-
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
You know, we don't know what's going to happen at the federal and state level, but you have three major, at least three, the home, the emergency one, and the
CDBG.
community, yeah, the block grant dollars. And I see in some of the line items, because you never know how much you're going to get until the last minute. So if, for whatever reason, we don't, I hope and pray that we get something. How does that impact your department? Because those are huge funding sources for a number of viable programs we have in the city.
Yeah.
So have you started thinking about?
So we're kind of working through some strategies in order to prepare for a range of eventualities as the budget process unfolds, right, in DC. And so what we're making sure we do right now as we sort of execute the annual action plan with our HUD dollars, then making sure that we're spending only the money that we've already been allocated. And so, you know, and making sure that our partners know that, you know, any future commitments are very contingent. Okay, so that's
a continuum of care group.
all that, yeah.
Organizations.
Yep, and, you know, there's a broad range of folks that we work with, you know, for-profit developers who may be involved in providing affordable housing, service providers, et cetera. And so we're just, you know, trying to be very mindful of executing the best we can while we wait for news and just, you know, sort of making sure that we're just deploying, you know, the previous dollars.
So have you heard anything at all, or?
Nothing but rumor, really.
No,
It's rumor, conjecture. So, and it, you know, it's scary, right? But we're preparing.
Okay. Just one of.
Sure.
I don't know if you're working on the home repair 2.0. Is that strictly under Mr. Lash, or?
Yes.
It is, you know. Okay, thank you.
I was just going to say, one thing I would add to what Mr. Julian said, a lot of the, particularly, well, really all three of the HUD programs, the dollars that will be spent in City of Akron fiscal year 2025 are largely dollars that were awarded by HUD for the 24 program. So just to keep in mind, that the dollars we're spending this year are pretty much the ones that have already been awarded. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's a good point. Mr. Fusco?
Thanks. I have a number of questions. The funding for the Interbelt, that's a heavy reliance on federal funds?
It is.
The next question, on page 85, and I just might as well just focus on this. I tend to ask more questions about the budgetary stuff. On the benefit side, it's not a lot, but I see, whereas the salaries, was that a payout or something?
So that really is a function of the way that people were coded in Workday, and the fact that we have a lot of, you can see that there's 3/4 of a person here. Well, the way the benefits hit, it hit all as one person. So part of that benefit should have been moved to other funds, but it wasn't, just because of the way it was coded. There was enough money there to let it sit, but that's the reason. It just had to do with the way the benefits are charged per month. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. So, and then on page 86, I see the way it budgeted in '24. This is under the OID, which, who's over OID now? Or is anybody? Is there, we learned yesterday that part of it went to neighborhood assistance.
So
How's that working?
So you're talking about page 86.
I'm talking about OID, just in general.
Yeah.
Like I said, is there anybody over it?
So Susie
officially?
Graham Moore is the,
Oh, you're over
It's over
OID.
there. She
okay,
is the
'cause we're
OID
not- yeah.
manager, yes.
Good,
Yeah.
good, yeah. We're asking for that org chart like yesterday. we'll get back to 86 here. So what I see on 86, though, is that we budgeted 2,300, spent 154K, and now we're budgeting 800,000.
So that
what's
is the grant-funded portion of the Interbelt Plan. So we took the Interbelt Plan, there's a federal grant that covers 80% of it. The other 20% is covered by ARPA. So there's a component of this in ARPA, and then this is the grant-funded portion. So it's roughly $800,000. So there's grant revenue to cover that here. So it's really not being funded with income tax, even though this is in the income tax fund. This is the grant-funded portion of the Sasaki contract.
The $800,000
Yes,
is
yeah.
for Sasaki.
Right.
Okay, I understand that now. And the income level, or the income from that I'm hearing is ARPA as well as
the federal grant. So we're using ARPA as our local match for the federal grant.
Okay.
So ultimately, it's all grant-funded, so to speak, yeah.
From the feds. Very good, thank you. Okay, on page, excuse me, 87. Did I have a question on 87? I don't know if I did or not. That's the long-range planning, Helen Tomic's group.
Yeah.
I don't think I have.
So that's primarily the staff from Helen's group
Yeah,
that's charged
yeah.
to CD, yeah.
I see under service contracts, we budgeted about 100K in '24, and
Correct, so that was a placeholder last year that we didn't use, so it's
Okay.
not in there this year.
That's cool. Yeah, 88, funding overall. This is under Community Development Block Grant, of course, and that's, thank you, Linda, for that. All the uncertainty around that. But on the bottom line side, we had budgeted what's the difference there? It looked like it's under service contracts. Somewhat of a dramatic difference. Budgeted 5.1, ended up 3.2, and now we're at 3.4, which makes sense based on last year's expenditures. But what?
Right, so
why?
altogether, if I look at CD, this year, the CD funds, we've budgeted roughly $7 million.
Okay.
That's roughly what we spent last year, even though we budgeted more last year. We really only spent about $7.3 million last year. So
Okay.
we're budgeting in line with what we spent last year.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay, on page 89, another service contract question there, I think. Yeah, we spent 675 versus 523 budgeted. We're back to 522 on the budget side. This is for
Correct. So the
emergency
allocation
shelter
for
grant?
emergency shelter is roughly $500,000. We did have some carryover balance last year, so we did spend a little bit more, but that's basically what we've been allocated.
Perfect, thank you. Then on page 90, the home grant funds, and this again seems to be going back again, to the amount budgeted, the amount spent, and then the 25, seeing that, and there is somewhat of a dramatic
Correct, and some of that is just the timing of projects. So
Okay.
we have budgeted a little bit more than we spent, and it's just some of the timing of some of the projects that we have lined up with the home funds.
It's almost $1 million, that's why
Yeah.
I brought that up. Then on page, I'm trying to get through this as quick as I can, Mr. Chair, thank you for your patience and everyone else. Then on page 91, of course, and this is another ARPA, I guess, question, and it makes sense that that's going to dramatically go down on page 91.
Correct, so that is the
Again, this-
remainder of, and I should say, I believe that we will have some funds in the ARPA fund left at the end of 2025. I don't think it'll be much.
Yeah.
We will largely spend that down this year, but yes, that reflects the fact that we're coming to the end of that
That's what-
program.
Kind of figured that part of it. And then 93, what's the next question here that I have teed up? This is the health department.
93, so.
And that's the one
Okay.
where we budgeted 4 million,
So-
spent 4 million, now we're going to spend 75,000.
Yeah,
on the
so that's
project.
not really true. So basically this is another area that we have done the substitution. So we have taken the Summit County Health contract and we have moved it to the ARPA fund.
Okay.
And that is basically so, and then we've taken, and Mike can expand on this a little bit, then we've taken a number of what were formerly ARPA projects and we're funding those under the general fund. So it was largely a one-to-one swap of contracts that we knew that are kind of annual contracts, like the Summit County Health contract, like at least half of the jail contract that we knew what the amount was, moved those to ARPA, and then took some of the ARPA projects, like portions of the community centers, some of the VIP programming, and moved those to the general fund. So it's, in terms of dollars, it was the same, but it just, we have some more certainty over these contracts that we moved to ARPA so that we don't end up, we know what we're going to spend and we're not going to return dollars to the federal government. So that's why we did that.
So with ARPA, and this is a relatively unique aspect of it, we have to budget to the penny every dollar expended. And whatever we didn't have obligated, and especially soft costs for community centers, such as like furniture, maybe additions to lighting, that kind of thing. If we didn't know that dollar amount, that made it an ineligible expense to ARPA. So that's part of the reason why we did this whole substitution process, so we could utilize every dollar and commit to the original budgets for like the community centers and some of the, these upgrades for like Ed Davis and Reservoir, and allow us the flexibility to, make decisions on the fly if we have to.
Okay.
And it's easier to move these one-time expenses and just kind of have a one-for-one substitution process.
Okay, I think I got it. But I may reserve the right to ask further questions.
The bottom line is, we do not want to have to return ARPA funds
Yeah,
to the
that's been our
federal
goal, and I think compared to our peer cities, we're doing pretty good on that side of it,
Still,
from what I hear and what I read.
Compared to our peer
Yeah.
cities, I think we're
Very
still
good.
ahead of most of them in terms of spend down, so.
Absolutely, no, and I think it, like I said, we did take a little bit of criticism in terms of turning it over to the mayor's office, but then again, maybe that model was good, and again, we're out ahead of our peer cities, so it kind of adds up from that side of it. I guess my final question here is that we had talked before about enforcement, about zoning enforcement, and trying to fix that zoning enforcement piece. I think some of us around the shoehorn, around the around the horn here, we get quite a few phone calls on the zoning enforcement piece, and so we're just wondering, would it be helpful to get more people to do that zoning enforcement piece, or how can we kind of up our game in terms of zoning enforcement?
So I'm going to ask Mike to come up here and help out with this answer as well.
Good.
But we have talked about this, internally, and we are at this point making sure that we're revisiting, making sure that our coordination across departments is effective and responsive as it can be. And so, a lot of what happens in that space is oftentimes it's not clear, is this a zoning problem or is this a nuisance problem? Most of the time, or quite often rather, it's both. And so we rely on the the folks in neighborhood assistance to a great degree to do the site visits and those types of things. And so that is that relationship is key to managing this process, and I think that we're working to make sure that's as efficient as it can be, and I think that the deployment of the resource, we deploy that resource, right? And I think that it's important because because of the fact that so often these calls are, it's the both, right? And so we need to enforce perhaps in two ways, right?
Good.
And then we're also going to be looking at what the code allows in terms of penalties, because I think that's another area where we need to just kind of make sure that we're doing what we can do in order to make people comply or make it painful not to comply. So I think that there's some interdepartmental operational stuff, to use a big jumble of words there, that we're working on that I think will have important and positive results for this process. And then I'll ask Mike to weigh in too.
Yeah, I would just say as far as like boots on the ground in terms of our inspectors that are out there, so we have neighborhood assistants, we have plans and permits, and there are folks that are out there that we can, goes through 311, we get a complaint, we can get with, shoot that over to, Francia's group or whoever, the inspector will go out, take photos or do whatever they need to do. So that part of it, as far as the personnel, as far as numbers of the actual, going out and investigating the issues, we're on top of that. A lot of the things do involve, like Kyle said, other departments. So neighborhood assistance in New Francia, we hold, regular meetings for some of the, tougher, issues that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
And so that involves input. There could be, policing matters, there could be housing issues, fire code issues, zoning code issues, multiple issues on one property. And so we have all these municipal, the codes, codified ordinances say different things for each department, right? So for
Yes.
zoning, we have to go through a process where, we're going to issue fines, and then those fines increase, so we got to deal with increasing
Correct.
fines. We have to provide a right to appeal, so they can go to the board, folks can go to the Board of Zoning Appeals, or they can request a conditional use. So there's a whole process that we have to
Right.
deal with. We're always dealing with law on, at what point do we bring this to prosecution? So that's another thing. So sometimes you're going to see that things feel like they're getting bogged down. Part of it is in the way the codes are written. So man, it's something that we can look at in terms of maybe we want to try to look at some things that are done more expediently and that kind of thing, follow up and that kind of thing. That's probably where, we could, do better.
Okay.
But as far as personnel, we think we're in a good spot.
Okay, challenge accepted. I think what we should do is we should carve out some time over the next several months after the smoke kind of clears from the budget and take a deep dive into the code and see what we can do to help facilitate that. I think that'd be beneficial. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Bolden?
I got an odd question. And it's about zoning. When you go into 311, there's really no zoning category. There's housing complaints, and you've got, it just doesn't give you a lot there. So, I mean, there's some areas, and I know this isn't for you guys, it would be go to the 311 people. It's just, I go in there, I get these zoning complaints, which I know they're zoning complaints, when I talk to somebody, but I really can't put them into 311 because there's no place to put them. So I call Mike, or I email Mike. It would be a lot easier if we could track some of these things a little bit better on 311. I don't know where I would put them in. That's just my 2 cents worth on
Well, I think
311s.
the ones that I'm familiar with that have, that you've relayed to us, are housing related. And so they could go right under that. And then that would, be directed into, Dwayne Greger's group or, and he would loop us in. So that would be,
So
as
basically
effective
go to
as anything
housing,
else.
And then Greg will decide whether it's a zoning issue or it's this is a 311.
Right, well, I will say that,
Not with-
our 311 operators, essentially, the mayor's call
center.
call center, they know where to put those things.
Right.
And so, my staff can go in and see, oh, that's a zoning one, and we can pull that out of the CityWorks software that we use, and that's all through 311. So they know how to put that in. I'm not sure what you're looking at, so maybe that's something.
It's
that
just
we
the
can-
app. There's nothing,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
no category for zoning.
That's maybe something that we.
It'd be under housing or property, and then you'd have to go in and put it in the narrative there, type what it is.
Oh.
I'm just wondering, with the app, does it get to the right person, or does it go to
It-
housing first, and then he has to dump it over to zoning? That's just, seems
Yeah, we
like,
can look at that app.
there's
Yeah.
there's a lot could be done with the app, so I think all of us agree on that. It's not your guys' fault, this
Yeah.
is something we can fight with.
look into that.
Thank you.
IT folks.
Yep.
And again, I think that may go back to the fact that many of the complaints are, they might straddle that line between nuisance and an actual zoning complaint. And so, reviewing the narrative needs to happen to see if it's an either or both.
Right.
And
Yeah, there's a process where we can go in, staff can go in and ding somebody else from another department.
Right, that
Hey,
this is
there's
yours,
issue,
yeah.
this is yours, this is yours. And
Eventually, we're
So-
going to have access to that, I think, parts of it, so that would be nice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. See any other questions? So thank you, Mr. Julian. Mike, thank you. See who's next. So now we are going to have the Office of Integrated Development, the Economic Development side.
As they're setting up the pages for their presentation, and the goals begin on 194, and the numbers are on 198.
Yeah, 194, 198.
All right.
Thank
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Susie Graham-Moore, Director of Economic Development, and I want to thank President Somerville, as well as Chairman Lombardo, Vice Chair Moby, and members of the committee and council for hearing our presentation today. The Office of Economic Development complements the Planning Department within the structure of the Office of Integrated Development. So to answer your question directly, there are two sides to the Office of Integrated Development currently. Planning is one. Mr. Julian, Director Julian just referred to the departments under his purview. And then under Economic Development, I'm pleased to be joined today by my colleagues. The management of the activities are managed by Sean Volman, who is our Deputy Director for Economic Development, Michelle DeFiore, who is our Development Engineering Manager, who is here as well, David Messner, who is our Development Manager, also present. Chris Griffith is the Downtown Operations Manager, and Latanda Mobley is our Great Streets Administrator. And so both of those, planning and economic development, technically should be toggled together so that the pursuit of economic development moves in the direction of our long-range planning. And so both are nested under the Office of Integrated Development. So in economic development, our focus is fostering economic growth and opportunity, retaining, expanding, and attracting businesses, fostering entrepreneurship, strengthening our business districts, and improving the quality of life for our Akron residents. And we're going to start on 203 is where you're going to see some of the expenses that I'm about to refer to. So in 2024, the city pledged support to the polymer industry cluster, resulting in nearly $1 million in state, federal, and local match to drive next-level innovation in sustainable polymers, which is a core legacy industry for us here in Akron, Ohio. In 2025, this work will continue as we advocate for the receipt and retention of those awarded funds and their allocated use, including the creation of a polymer research facility in partnership with the University of Akron. We've committed $750,000 of support over 3 years, and 2025 would be year 2 of that commitment. The economic development team supports the spectrum of business from micro-entrepreneurship to mature businesses through a combination of city programming and capacity that is outsourced to a robust network of community partners. The department is an active participant in Elevate Greater Akron, which we refer to frequently here at Council. That is a cross-sector collaboration between local, regional, and state organizations to drive prosperity here to Akron as well as the Greater Akron region. Despite the retirement of our BRE manager, Brad Beckert, in 2024, the economic development team participated in 201 Elevate Greater Akron business retention and expansion visits, and an additional 57 small business visits outside of the Elevate program. These visits allow us to understand and address the needs of our businesses, express our appreciation for the work that they do every day to help Akron prosper, and connect them to available resources within the region. Partnership with state and local representation during those meetings provided support that yielded over $13 million of investment and $24 million of increased payroll to the city of Akron, as well as the revitalization of challenged spaces in the city. This work complements a multitude of unquantified but truly priceless connections to small business supports and workforce assistance through nonprofits, Connexus, and the County of Summit that help Akron businesses grow. We look forward to continuing this work in 2025 and with similar resources allocated in the budget, with a goal of participating in 200 Elevate Greater Akron visits and 80 non-Elevate Greater Akron portfolio visits. In late 2024, the Downtown Akron Development Corp surpassed its fundraising goal of $310,000 annually for 3 years, with commitment from the city for $50,000 a year for 3 years. This support helped to leverage a $1.5 million grant from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation that has a 2-to-1 match for key downtown development projects. The city also supported the expansion and 5-year renewal of the Downtown Akron Special Improvement District, and thank you for council support in that renewal that was championed by Downtown Akron Partnership, which more than triples city investments with private property ownership contributions toward a clean, safe, and welcoming downtown for all. In 2025, we will continue downtown development work, supporting stabilizing some of our very challenged downtown properties, combating commercial vacancy, investing in parking facilities and management, and investing in residential reuse and hospitality to drive a thriving corridor that yields a significant portion of the city's income and bed tax in a 3-street district. We're thrilled with the acquisition of One Cascade in early 2025 and look forward to additional investment and growth this year. This work also includes city support of the University of Akron Polsky Building renovation with a $1 million total commitment divided over 4 years. So now we're going to move over to page 205 and talk a little bit about Lock 3. Construction in the $17 million Lock 3 project was completed in the fourth quarter of 2024. Despite a year of programming divided between 2 spaces, Chris Griffith and the Lock 3 team hosted 20 community events and 52 concerts featuring 114 bands representing a wide range of musical genres. Lock 3 hosted the African American Festival, the Italian Festival, Rib, White, and Blue, Akron Pride, and Pizza Fest, as well as 8 free movie nights, 5 charity runs or walks, and hosted the Finishers Festival for the Akron Marathon. With all of the above, Lock 3 Park welcomed an estimated 250,000 people from May to September of 2024. In the newly renovated space, Lock 3's Winter Blast entertained more than 25,000 people, including ice skaters, ice bumper car riders, visitors on field trips, group outings, and more. Chris and his team partnered with the Recreation and Parks Bureau to manage and merge 2 traditional holiday events into one, with the Welcome Santa Parade and holiday tree lighting at Lock 3. Over 5,000 people attended those festivities with an outstanding first-ever drone show. Also worthy of mention, although it feels like forever ago, Chris and his team worked closely with safety forces and communications to support the downtown celebration of the solar eclipse. In 2025, we look forward to planning for a welcoming space that celebrates the Akron community and builds a stronger, bolder identity for Akron. Driven by the incoming results of the 2025 Lock 3 survey, Lock 3 will increase programming days, establish clear and consistent operating hours, and host a blend of local and national performing acts to attract a broad scope of visitors to the downtown area. The budget reflects an increased investment of $600,000 in these acts, and we are partnering with both the Akron Civic Theater and Kevin Dorsey to book a wide range of genres in this space. We've also built a revenue generation model into place with a minimum goal of reducing the impact of that increase to $200,000, and we hope to do better than that. This is the pilot year for this model, and it will be reevaluated on an ongoing basis. With an increase in visitors to the district, we hope to see positive impacts to existing restaurants, shops, and nightlife, and even overnight stays with well-known acts drawing people to the city. We look forward to partnering with the Director of Sustainability and Resiliency, Casey Shevlin, to evaluate and implement changes in practices to help Lock 3 become a more sustainable public space by reducing waste, using biodegradable products, and increasing recycling. In 2024, LaTonda Mobley conducted 287 meetings. These are outside of the aforementioned Elevate Greater Akron meetings with our Great Streets business owners and made 114 community connections via her canopy tour in each of those 13 Great Street districts. The Great Streets team also attended 14 resource partner events, and beautification planters were added to the Astor Avenue district to total 8 districts with a volunteer-supported beautification program. The city also supported 5 community events within the Great Streets districts. Assuming the receipt of CDBG support, so we just discussed that with the planning team, in 2025, we look forward to launching a refreshed facet of the 4-pillared Great Streets Initiative with a matching facade grant and a small business assistance grant program to support micro businesses in improving business practices and scaling up. As an Akron Civic Commons team core member, the city remains focused on the development of the Summit Lake neighborhood with and not for its residents to encourage density, vibrancy, and safety. Building on the completion of the Ohio and Erie Canal Summit Lake Trail in 2023, the Summit Lake Vision Plan North Shore Activity site work was completed in the 4th quarter of 2024, and the Summit Lake Vision Plan North Shore Activity Area Building Package was also bid in the 4th quarter of 2024. All of this work is accomplished in partnership with the Ohio and Erie Canalway Coalition and Dan Rice, and we look forward to the completion of the North Shore development in 2025. From development engineering, we supported a robust traffic calming program in 2024, installing 30 speed tables in 17 locations, as well as an asphalt table on Maple Street, and celebrated the successful opening of the beautiful Ed Davis Community Center. In 2025, we will implement a similar traffic calming program and strive to complete both Reservoir and Patterson Park community centers, as well as Reservoir Pool on time and on budget, bringing investment in quality shared community spaces into our neighborhoods. This is an area where our development engineer works very closely with other departments to help oversee some of those projects. The development team supported the strategic use of city-owned land with 31 transactions involving 51 parcels of pre-development work, affordable and market-rate housing, mow-to-own, and commercial and industrial development. In related development work, the department added to our JED parcels in 2024 and secured $500,000 in asbestos remediation loan funds, as well as supporting 4 legislated tax increment financing projects. The 2025 budget reflects $13,873,000 in commercial demolition projects, including a $3,700,000 local match that will complement the $1,314,000 in residential demolition projects. Those commercial demolition projects include 1200 Firestone, the Kenmore Annex, the former Rankin, and the Goodrich School Building. The economic development budget includes phase 1 of a child care program pilot led by Rochelle Wardell, education and health strategist. She mentioned this to you during her presentation. And because quality child care is a critical component in economic development as it supports the talented workforce who rely on it, as well as supporting the budding entrepreneurs within the provider network and supports the readiness of our future workforce, we're happy to host that program. City funds will specifically be used for the workforce aspect of the pilot. And then finally, we look forward to continuing the celebration of Akron's 200th birthday through operational programming and project support of Akron 200 and the Bicentennial. We'd be happy to have any questions that you may have.
Well, thank you. We have Councilwoman Amobian here.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for your presentation. And thank you for what's going on downtown. At least it sounds like we are filling some of those empty buildings, or we're getting buyers or whatever to help us out there. I notice when I come downtown, I see people walking with dogs, so I know we have residents living downtown. Do we know how many we have now?
Yes, there's about 2,800 residents in downtown now. Between 2,800 and 3,100, the goal is to get to 5,000 residents by 2030.
Oh, okay. I know the mayor has talked about this. Do we have any plans to get a grocery store downtown yet?
Yeah.
Aldi's is moving across the street from Acme. We should have told them to move downtown. But I know we don't have control over that.
We don't have control of that type of a grocery store moving in. However, we will need enough residential density and use to be able to support that type of a retail operation. There's several ways that it might be approached. One, there are some really wonderful budding entrepreneurs in our neighborhoods that operate successful bodega operations that might be able to come into the downtown neighborhood. It is likely, though, because grocery typically has a super narrow profit margin, they would need to move into a space where they'd be able to be pretty well subsidized, at least for the first few years of operation. When you think about Heinen's up in Cleveland, Heinen's very successful large operation, even that Cleveland operation in the 9 is subsidized.
I just have a couple more questions. The speed tables, you said we had 30, the temporary ones. Did we do some permanent ones, or I know we talked about it.
The asphalt one was the one that's installed on Maple Street. So yes, there's that one that has been
Is that the
installed.
one we have now?
Yes.
Okay, okay. One of the questions we've asked for many, many years, and I know that Lot 3 is more than revenue-generating business, is really to bring folks downtown and to entertain folks and do all kinds of wonderful things. Do we have a good way of tracking how much revenue is coming through there? And I see where we have staffing and all those things, but there's money that's exchanged when people buy tickets and all of that. Is there a way, do we have a better way of tracking that now?
I think that we've improved it significantly. I'm also going to defer a little bit to Chris Griffith if he wants to fill in, but they have a system that they've put into place down at Lock 3 called Toast. So that is their point of sale system, so that allows us to track those food and beverage transactions more closely. We can see that revenue coming in, and then we'll be partnering with the Civic Theater to do some of the for sale ticketing for the space as well, and absolutely be able to capture those numbers. Because in an ideal universe, we'd love to get to a break-even model, and so we want to start moving us in that direction, so long as we're still providing a place for everyone and a place where there's opportunities for people to come to free concerts, as well as be able to see something that they would have never imagined to be able to see downtown.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice for us to see that, see what we are generating. Because when people come down to ice skate and do all those other things, there are dollars.
So, yeah, we do have information. So last year, we generated about $374,000. I think that's with, the new park not being in place. So I think it has been higher in previous years, but, yeah, so we do have tracking on what we bring in.
Okay. As long as we're getting better numbers, 'cause I know in years past, we've not been able to get good numbers. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks. Thank you for everything you do. Appreciate it. And there's been a little bit of shuffling in terms of who's responsible for what. So I apologize for my comment. I do have questions. Page 200. Okay, you just left me here. Let's see here. Where are we at? 200. Well, to top off, there's so we had the current count is 15 and a half people. We budgeted 18.25, but we're down 3. Is that it? Was it due to retirements or something? And we're just gonna.
So which page are you looking at?
Well, right now I'm looking at 197. I apologize.
Okay,
That's
197.
I said 200, but 197. That's on the full-time staffing summary. Just curious about that.
So we do have the BREA manager has yet to be filled. We do have a candidate, so we expect
Okay.
to introduce that person to you soon. And then there is two other supporting positions that could be filled.
Okay,
And
what's
so-
what manager? I apologize.
No, business retention expansion manager, so what was formerly filled by Brad Becker.
Okay, good. Thank you. And now, in some of that responsibility that he had previously was he was the office.
He was the chief building
supervisor.
official as well.
The chief building
which is why-
official,
Which is
right.
why you see that going up 1/4%.
Okay,
Because
chief building
that-
officer.
The new person will no longer fill that function. So that 1/4% of Brad was actually charged to the service director's office.
Okay, good. Because now it's falling under planning, I think. Is that
So
right?
we're actually doing a contract for that function.
Oh, we're doing a contract
Yeah.
for it. Oh, interesting. Okay, where's that going to be? The contract.
It's under engineering, I believe, yeah.
Interesting. Thank you. Okay. I understand. So you have 2 other positions that you're hoping to fill
Yes.
that are going to be,
That would support both Great Streets and the business retention and expansion activity.
cool, thank you. Now, on page 200, the debt service piece, just curious about that.
So I think
Yeah.
I talked about this last year. You're on 200.
Page 200, debt service.
Correct, so that is, there's a little bit of debt service budgeted there in case the income tax revenue fund doesn't bring in enough to pay the debt service, so I do have some reserve there. We did not need it last year, I reduced it this year.
Okay. Okay, very good. And then last year, we budgeted on the same page, equipment for 530, spent 375, and now we're going to be at 320. What happened? That's like 200,000?
The last year involved a number of repairs to bounce, and we had a match for the second floor of the bounce thing. That is going to be a much less of a cost this year.
Good.
I think there's still some remaining, but we also are looking. It includes it also, I believe, includes our annual subsidy to bounce.
Okay.
Then we're in the 3rd year of a 3-year contract for that. And then we are looking to do a study on the Young's restaurant parcel.
Okay,
To try
good.
to prime that for development.
Cool.
So that's what's in there this year, minus what costs for bounce.
Gotcha. Cool, cool. Page 201, see a significant difference under the service contracts?
201.
So that,
Yeah.
in reality, what happened, that is the portion of the Ocasek building rent that we collect from the state agencies that work in there. It should have hit down under rentals and leases, but because the lease is kind of it's a combination of debt service that's paying for the construction, or the reconstruction of the building.
Okay.
And the operating costs of the building, it ended up hitting under service contracts. So really that $1,270,000 should be down under rentals and leases. So it's in the right budget, it just hit on a different line.
Oh, okay, under equipment, construction, and is that the one you say? Okay.
Rentals,
Gotcha.
rentals and leases.
Rentals and leases, right.
Okay, which saves me the next, that was my next question, of course. Interfund. Where'd that go? Interfund. No, that's not it. Yeah, interfund was that was 600, and then nothing for this year. Is that
Correct. So
part of the whole?
And that was also, so the Ocasek rent is paid from a combination of this budget, which is the state lease component of, so basically we have the Ocasek building, we have.
Gotcha.
The courts are in there.
Yes.
We collect some of the rent from the special projects fund that the judges have. We collect some of the money from this fund, which is charging the state for the lease of their space.
Gotcha.
That is a payback from the previous year, so we had to fund a little bit of that debt out of another fund the
Okay.
previous year, so there was an advance to this fund, which we had to pay back.
So that's part of OID as well, right?
It is.
You guys
This
get
is
to
really,
manage
it's
all that.
not, this is almost a cost center that just houses the recovery of some revenues. It's not really a division that has operations. It's really some
Okay.
contractual type costs that are captured there.
Cool, thank you. On page 202, question, of course, salaries. 202, is this right?
So that is the terminal pay for Mr. Beckert and Mr. DeShazier.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, very good. Then 203, and what we're looking here is that, oh, shoot, where did I find that at? Looks like it's doubling the service contracts piece.
So
The
there,
big- oh.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Sean.
the biggest portion of that is with the matches for the demo. Most of it was done with general fund.
Okay.
But we put 500,000 in JED for the Goodrich building demolition. So that is responsible for the majority of that increase. The other ones, let me get back, I scrolled past service contracts. Other professional services. We have things that, that go to council on an individual basis. So we have, we've added, I believe that includes what we just did last week for the Black Chamber. And then I scrolled down to, I'm not good at computers. I'm good with numbers, but not computers. It also involves, there we go. It also involves, what's the new one that is in there? Oh, the pre-K. I scroll down one more. The pre-K is in there. The $50,000 to the downtown CDC that council approved is in there. I just need to scroll down a little bit more. And I don't know if we've mentioned this in council or not, but we were picked to host the Ohio Economic Development Association Annual Summit.
Cool.
And part of that
Great.
is like a $10,000 sponsorship of that. But it's going to be in October at the Knight Center. Should be a great event.
That's
We'll know
awesome.
more, as it goes on.
Fantastic.
So those are those
Congratulations.
increases.
Good. Good. And then the debt service that's no longer there, is that
Correct. So
just
the
paid
debt
off?
Service, that is a bond. It's not paid off, but that is a bond that was previously funded by both JED and TIF, and now we're paying the entire portion out of TIF. So that's why that is no longer there.
Okay. Good. Thank you so much. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Hannah?
Thank you. My question is, I'm looking at the Summit Lake development. Will there be cuts on that project this year?
Which page are you?
Summit Lake.
Well, I'm just on
On the-
page 195. That's the Summit Lake development.
On the North Shore development?
Yes. Will there be
Michelle,
any
do you want to
cuts
give us
on
an
that
update
part?
as far as, Michelle DeFiore can give us a little update as far as that bidding process on the North Shore development and how that project's being funded?
So the North Shore Park project the building package is under construction. Ohio and Erie Canalway has awarded that contract to Kavanaugh Construction, and will be mobilizing this week. So there are no cuts to that project.
Okay, but are there going to be any budget cuts from the city for that project, for Summit Lake project?
No, and the one that's already bid?
Yeah,
No, it's under contract, so
Okay.
it's off and running.
okay, thank you.
Councilwoman Sharon Connor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say, I've had more opportunity these past year to work with OID and Susie and Michelle, and I'm so grateful for all the work you've done in helping to develop the east side. IRG, Reservoir Park, the pool, Tangier's coming. It's just been such a pleasure to watch it grow, and it's happened because of all of your help. So I'm grateful.
Thank you.
Madam President?
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Just a question, Susie Graham-Moore, underneath your goals, where it says Summit Lake Support Economic Development Programming, what are we talking about there? As a ward council person, I've heard nothing about that, so
Sure.
very interested.
So at one time, there was the desire to pursue a choice neighborhood grant for that area. And as they are retooling to reconsider a different grant application, we wanted to stay true to our promise to work on some economic development activities in Summit Lake. And so prior to some of those decisions to change the direction for the grant application, we had talked with the folks at AMHA and discussed doing some micro-entrepreneurship training opportunities at the Reach Opportunity Center or working with AMHA. And so we're anticipating, they are people-powered initiatives, if that makes sense. So it's convening groups of people to help some of the residents that are in the area, whether they are AMHA residents or not, understand different ways that they might turn what they are doing right now that might be entrepreneurship into a business, to grow a business.
Okay, so definitely want to talk more about that, because that's the first time I'm hearing about it. And I think to Councilman Hannah, I think what you're talking about is choice neighborhoods. That is what funding has been cut for, just so we're clear on that. The other thing I see, Susie, underneath your goals, it says to advance neighborhood redevelopment projects in Summit Lake. Is that no longer planning?
We work in conjunction with planning, so both of those things being under OID. Sometimes it might be an economic development activity. Let's say it's a grocery store that's looking to do some improvements in their space. And so we may come in to help them grow that development we may do a tax increment financing or an economic development grant to help foster that specific type of growth. But the long-term planning effort is done over in long-term planning. And then Michelle DeFiore also works closely with the planning department on some of the initiatives that they would like to drive forward, so long as we're able to secure some grant funds to do additional green space development and create more connectivity in the neighborhood to where there's been so much investment on the shoreline there.
Thank you. I'm sorry. It's just kind of hard to know who's doing what. It's kind of, so thank you for explaining that.
You bet.
Just have one
Another question here?
yeah. Just a little follow-up. Where would we find information about bounce? Which slide would that be on?
So the bounce, the support contract, I believe is in the BRE budget, which is on page,
The support is under
is that under development?
Yep.
Okay, so that is on page 200.
200. OID development in JED,
Correct.
and the commitment we have for them, where is that?
We are in the third year of a contract with $125,000 a year of support.
How much?
$125,000.
Okay, I kind of remember that. Let me ask you this. I know that the building is, I don't know what shape it's in now. I know that we're having some problems, but every time I go there, I'm extremely impressed with all they've done. Have they thought about doing a reappraisal or something just to kind of see how much the building is worth? Did we actually transfer that to them? I think we did that sometime.
So I believe it's still.
We still own the building.
Yeah, and we still pay property.
What did
And we
we
pay
do?
on it,
property
too,
taxes
yeah.
on it.
What did we do several years ago? I thought we transferred that to them.
At one point in time, we were looking to do that. However, the grant from the federal government, the U.S. Economic Development Association grant that they did to rebuild it, required us to be the owner, so we could not transfer it. It's my understanding. I was still in law then, but that was my understanding.
So we still own the building?
Yes.
And what are they doing? Are they renters, leasers, or what? Are they leasees?
I think the agreement itself is an operating agreement to operate and manage the building.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Don't get me wrong, I'm quite impressed with what they're doing there, so, but I'm just curious. I was thinking that the building was in better shape, and maybe they could reappraise it and see the value and see if there's a way to generate revenue through the reappraisal, but that's another question for another day. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Fusco?
One last.
One last.
If we could perhaps carve out some time in the very near future, we're the article that came out from our friends down the street here referencing that the CHIPS Act. Would like to get maybe an update down the road, like I said, in terms of what's happening with that and where we go from there.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Well, thank you for your time, Susie, and you too, Sean. Have a good afternoon. All right, next up, public
We need to get Mr. Luddle
public service.
in the room. Yeah, correct.
Okay. All right, little break.
So I believe this starts on page 102 for the goals and objectives.
Good afternoon, Madam President, members of council, Mr. Chairman Lombardo. My name is Chris Luddle, Public Service Director. Behind me, I will start with Jeff Bernowski. I think everyone knows these gentlemen, but Jeff Bernowski is responsible for all of our drinking water. Next to him is Rob Scarlatelli. He's our WRF manager, Water Reclamation Facility. Next to him is Travis Capper, our city engineer. Next to Travis is Anthony Dolly, our deputy public works manager. And next to Anthony is John Malish, our public works manager. So Anthony and John are new to those positions for this year's budget. The rest of the gentlemen were in these positions last year. So thank you for this opportunity to present this budget to you for 2025. I will start with engineering. And some of the things, obviously we're responsible for all design and construct all these public projects that you've heard about this week from other divisions. These projects consist of not only our CSO or our consent decree projects, but all our transportation, our parks improvements, our public facilities, water and sewer projects. So we advertise, engineering advertises all these projects, and then they are bid and awarded, and then we manage the process. So some of the most notable ones that you will be seeing this year, some of these have already come to you for legislation. Some will be coming to you very soon, is the North Main Street project from bridge to bridge. It is an improvement of that corridor. The next is the Rubber City Heritage Trail Phase 2. We finished the phase there by Fire Station 2 last year. This phase will pick up there at Arlington and Market, run behind Dave's Market, and end right there at Exchange. Next is the Cascade Rehab Project, the deck rehab project. We received over $5 million of state funding for that. We are currently rehabbing the orange and green elevators, and that project will start later this year also of the infrastructure. Sanitary sewer reconstruction, Kent Street Bridge replacement, our demo projects, you've heard about that from some of the other divisions. Just some updates on those demo projects, the large commercial ones. Firestone headquarters, currently we have RFPs out. We are going to shortlist. That will be bidding probably in three weeks, I would assume. Rankin is under demo right now. They are working on the abatement. We expect that abatement to end soon, and then the demo will begin on the Rankin project. Kenmore Annex, that is over off of Lakeshore by Summit Lake. That contractor has completed the building demo. They're all down. They're just now doing the remediation of the surface work of that project. In Goodrich Middle School currently, the survey work for the asbestos abatement is being done by a contractor. And then later, you'll see the demo on that Goodrich Middle School, excuse me. We're going to complete the Exchange Street project by the University of Akron this year. We have just bid and awarded the city sidewalk program, so that will be starting soon. We will complete the Patterson Park Community Center this year. Hopefully that will be open around Memorial Day. And the Gorge Dam projects, we're responsible for the placement area of the sediment, and also where they're going to stage their equipment to remove the sediment. Both of those are near completion, and then we will be waiting on the contractor from the US EPA to start that sediment removal. So plans and permits, we will be facilitating plan reviews, not only for our right-of-way work, but also private work throughout the network that we own. Next, the other one that we'll be working on, we've brought to this to you last year. I think we plugged 2 gas wells down in the valley by WRF. There's 5 remaining, and we'll be working on that this year. Public Works, we've talked about this. I think a few times we brought this to you, is the implementation of the Samsara fleet management. We are currently installing that new equipment in our Public Works vehicles. They will all have front-facing cameras, and this will help us not only optimize our systems, but they'll be able to, you know, they'll geolocate. So when they're, let's use sanitation as an example, they're out there at 4:30 in the morning, they see a street light out, they'll be able to hit a button on the screen in their truck, and it will automatically generate a work order for a street light not working. They will also be able, that's another example of that, which you would see is a pothole. If they see a pothole, they could geolocate it, they could hit a button on their screen, it'll geolocate, it'll create a work order and send it back to whoever's responsible for Public Works at the time to give that work order to one of the crews. Those are probably the 2 biggest things right now we're doing in Public Works. I do want to commend the Public Works staff. I'm hoping that the snow is done. Seeing we're going to have 60s next week, but we all know it's only March, so I don't want to talk about it, but they've done a fabulous job so far this year with snow and ice. They've done a great job. So next we're going to talk about sewer. We will just continue to operate and maintain. Obviously, that's a 24/7 operation. As Councilman Bolden said one time, everything goes down in his ward, that's the end of the pipe. So they do a fabulous job down there. We respond to thousands of requests from customers. Obviously, when it's raining, we get a lot of calls, but I could tell you all the improvements that we have done through engineering, through the sewer, we get very few calls for service. When we get downpours, we would have hundreds of calls. It doesn't happen anymore. So we talk about those improvements we've made in the sewer system. They have paid off tremendously for our residents to keep that influent out of their basements. You know, we treat about 62 million gallons a day on average, and we maintain a high level of commitment to that. You know, back in the 80s, when you would get over 100 million gallons flow rate, that was going right to the river. That doesn't happen anymore. It's been years since we've discharged to the river from that wastewater plant. They do a fabulous job managing that system, and that goes to the real-time control that they've implemented down there. Some of the other things that we're doing is just optimizing with our employees. And one thing we really want to do at all divisions, we want to improve communication. We want to invest in our employees. We want to give them the highest level of training that they would like. We'd like to offer that to them. Jeff's done a great job with doing continuing education. He's been able to get EPA continuing education hours. He actually teaches them to our employees, and that we don't have to go outside. They don't have to go to outside agencies. They have to for some things, but we want to give our employees, and we want to get input from our employees, and this is all divisions. It's the boots on the ground. It's the guys and gals out on the ground doing the job every day. We want to hear from them how they think we can improve this system. So I got to commend everybody behind me because they've done a fabulous job doing that over the last so many years. Water distribution or water bureau, we're going to, you know, obviously same thing as sewer. We're going to maintain the high quality of water that we put out every day to our residents. And I think we go above and beyond with our regulations, not only at the water plant, but also water distribution and watershed. We've talked about this, and I have to mention it again, as our lead service replacement program. We only have 1,365 currently active in the city of Akron. That goes back in the 60s when we had 55,000. So those 1,365, we have 1,300 of those 13 under contract right now. We have large contracts out, and those 1,300 on the progress they're making, because we track it every day, Jeff really feels like midsummer they'll be done. They'll be done, and then we'll have less than 100 left to do for the rest of the year. And we didn't put those in the program because when we talk about water main replacement, we have built those lead services and water main replacement. So we have other contracts coming out this year where we have looked at critical break history on some of our water mains. So we are going to bundle those in. So by the end of this year, all lead services, active lead services, we do not feel like there'll be a residential house served in Akron that has a lead service, this has been fantastic. So if I want to talk about water main breaks a minute, and we talked about this before, just in 2025, we've had 124 water main breaks since the first of the year. Last year, we had a total of 305 for the whole year. But if you go back to last year, we had 55 in December. So if you take the 55 in December and the 124 that we had in January and February in the first couple days, you're looking at about 175 breaks. And I have to we're really proud that we have fixed all these with our own staff. Usually when we get overwhelmed, we have to go to outside contractors like we do in other things, but we did not do that this year. So 7 days a week, a lot of them 12 hours a day, and then we'd get another one that maybe leave a resident without water, and you'd have to ask the 4 people over there, can you stay and do one more? And they stepped up and they did it. So they did a fantastic job. But it shows this aging infrastructure, and by prioritizing that, that's why we've got this water main replacement program is so important to us. Meters project, we're probably 90% done, real close. So 90% of our water meters, commercial and residential, have been completed. We're kind of cleaning up right now. As you know, we wanted to mount an outside receiver outside the house, so that created a low voltage wire from the meter location. So a lot of the ones that are left, we're getting back in those houses with an electrician, and they're running that wire. So this is cleanup work. Another probably 5-6 months we'll be totally done, and we'll be talking to you about the new customer information system that we're going to be implementing. It's a new billing system, which is going to be a lot better for our customers, going to give them a lot more flexibility, and it also will allow them to watch their usage, and in a timely manner, we can notify them if they have a high usage running toilet. Has cost people hundreds of dollars, if they don't catch it, because we used to only read that meter once a month. Now we'll be reading that meter at least once a day. And if we have continuous usage, it'll give an alert. And however they set that up, if the customer set it up, I would like to receive a text message, you'll receive a text message. If you want a phone call, you'll receive a phone call. If you want it to be email, you'll get an email. You need to check something in your house because you've had 24 hours of usage. And this is a lot better than going 30 days. The Britton Road Reservoir, we've talked about that a couple weeks ago. That's coming up. That will be, that project is ready to advertise and bid. And then the first thing that will happen mostly this year is the demo of that. And then next year, you're going to see that 110-year-old structure getting rebuilt there in Goodyear Heights. So the long-term vision for water, we're looking at how we can optimize things. We have a 100-year-old plant, what we can do to improve that incrementally, or do we have other options for that water plant? But we're looking to maintain that high quality that we have been doing for over 100 years. That's basically it for all our divisions. We can get into the budget. I think we started on, is it 105, Steve? 104, 104. Do you want to take questions there, Mr. Chairman, or what do you want to do?
That's fine. If anybody has any questions initially. 104, yeah.
A lot of pages.
Yeah.
We do a lot.
You do.
That's fine.
Yeah, this is the one. the salary piece, I guess, went a little bit over, but this is, yeah, it's the golf course. And I thought it was under neighborhood assistance, but it's under, so I shouldn't, it's not fair for me to ask you that. We just learned yesterday that it's actually under neighborhoods. So maybe I can reserve that, or Mr. Fricker, I don't know if you know the
Go
answer.
ahead, you can ask, I mean.
Okay, thank you.
This is, yeah, it was structured here, so.
Yeah, and no, it just seemed like a lot of overtime or something, or?
So we had more part-time staff there last year.
Okay.
So it was kind of in between, so we kind of picked a level, we did reduce that a little bit this year, so it's kind of in between what we budgeted last year and what we spent, so.
Yeah, okay, I understand, I just curious on that piece of it. And then 109 is, what's the question there? Public service grants, what did I say,
So
expenses?
that's the Acorn grant, so that is.
Okay, I gotcha.
Component, so, yeah, so that is, working with the tree program.
And who knows where that's gonna go?
It is, but, so we did budget for it, so we haven't spent a whole lot. We actually do have some reimbursable costs that we're gonna do this year. We do have budget in for it. I think that is one of the question marks, but we do have
Unstable
budget
ground,
for it, yeah.
Do you have questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, I do. Thank you. Thank you, Chris, and your team for all that you do. We really appreciate that, and really appreciate that Rankin School coming down. I'm getting calls from the residents over there now, so we appreciate that. But my question is, where are the gas wells located at?
The ones we're plugging are down between Akron Peninsula Road and Riverview Road, north of our water plant. So we had 40 acres north of our plant, then across Bath Road on National Park land. Before it was National Park land, we had gas wells there. We have capped all the gas wells on National Park land. The rest is on land we own. They do not produce anymore. Obviously, gas wells, when they are drilled, usually, if you hit a good one, it produces, and then it slowly goes down to producing nothing. So in our agreement when they were drilled, that we had to cap them once they were no longer in use or producing. So there's 5 left. I think there was 15 at one time.
So there's 5 city-owned.
Yes.
So
We owned them all, even though they were on National Park land.
Okay.
But then it became National Park land, but we retained them.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Go ahead. I have a lot more. I can give them, and I don't want to monopolize the time, but I have a lot more questions. I'll just send them via email.
Yeah, you can continue then.
I'm just taking questions.
Oh,
I'm ready for
I thought
you
you
guys.
had you had another section to go over, and you wanted to stop for questions. Okay. Is there any other questions for Mr. Ludlow?
I have a lot, but like I said, I'll send them via email.
Okay. All right, well, there's no questions.
He comes to us every week.
Yeah, we see him every week.
See you Monday.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for all you do.
No, I was just gonna.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just gonna thank Chris's amazing whole entire team. So just thank you for being just so responsive on issues in the neighborhood. So again, thank you.
Yep. All right, well.
I think with that,
That's it.
we are concluded. If there are questions, certainly feel free to reach out via email. And we will, as we've done in the past, anything that we create, spreadsheets or anything like that, we will post in that directory that you all have access to. So all that information will be contained in that council directory on the shared drive.
On the shared drive. Okay, thank you. Whoops. No other business. This meeting is adjourned.